All right, well, thank you everyone for joining today's workshop that is being offered by the OGC's Climate Resilience Domain Working Group. So just a brief introduction to this group. So if you're not familiar, OGC, or the Open Geospatial Consortium, is an international standards development organization. So it creates a lot of the standards that allow geospatial information to be discovered, accessed, shared, and used. And it works primarily through a working group structure where different working groups help to create the standards and also support the discussion of domain concepts such as climate resilience and help to inform the creation of those standards. So here within this working group, we focus on climate resilience, so things like climate change, activities like that, and how and we can convene different types of conversations in that context to help inform activities that OGC will undertake. So more recently, we've been collaborating with the Focal project, which is a major European initiative that's looking to improve the access of climate data more at a local level. So we've been hosting a number of webinars to help inform the community of what's going on in that project and help to connect people together. So today, this webinar is being delivered by Karel Charvat, who's a project manager for an organization called Plan for All. And he's going to be talking about the use of metadata catalogs in the context of geospatial large language models and looking at the JackDaw approach. So with that, I will pass the floor to Karel. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe that at the beginning, I would like to tell a few words about Plan for All. Today we will speak about metadata. I will mention a lot of about Inspire, and generally history of Plan for All is very close to the history or development of Inspire, because initially Plan for All was European project. It was in the time when was not defined metadata, but when data models were defined, and Plan for All was one from the project which work on defining of Inspire thema for, I think, 6 different annexes. And then we continue a little with this work in another project, Plan for Business. But on the end, we decided that we need in some way guarantee continuity of the work, result, and other. And we establish Plan for All as association. Initially, it was established by 3 Czech members of this project, but now Plan for All is member association with 65 members worldwide. There's many from the Czech, most from Europe, but we have also members in Asia, Africa, and also in America. And we are non-profit, we are independent body, but we are also involved in a huge number of different organization. OGC is one from the organization where we are active, but we are also part of Association for Data, Robotics and Artificial Intelligence, ADRA, BTVA, and we are also participating organization of GEO. So we are trying to be active. We are running a number of European research projects, but we are also supporting our members to be part of the project. And today I will speak about one topic in which on some way I am involved for a very long time, about one topic which many times is considered as very boring, and although many people hate this topic, but on other side it is a very important topic, and now mainly with artificial intelligence, I think that we have to consider this topic as very important, and we need in some way move and change our thinking about this. And I will show something what we are doing, but mainly I will also generate some research topic and a research question for the future, because metadata, only if we will speak about Europe, are solved in a number of initiatives. Not in all initiatives are solved in the same way, and we have to find the way how we can integrate it, this topic, and how we can make this metadata on one side available for artificial intelligence, and on another side, how we can use artificial intelligence to generate better metadata. Yes, because I think that it was one from the weakest point in the past with building of SDI, that people really were not willing to build metadata. So I will start with the beginning. Who are familiar? Yes, we have this family 19100XX. Of course, the key is core model ISO 19115, but this is for data. But there also exists 19119, which is for services, and 19139, which was the schema for the exchanging of information. So there exists a huge amount of this ISO standard on one side, but on another side, probably anybody who has some experiences with preparing metadata in this ISO standard was not very happy, because there is a lot of things, and the model is very complicated, and it is not the most easy to use this for describing of your data or your services, but based on this ISO standard, there were built the most of this metadata in European INSPIRE directive. This covered not all European spatial data, because it was focused on environmental data on one side, and also on the government data. So it means that, for example, part of INSPIRE, there were no agriculture data. Yes, okay, one team is agriculture facilities, but the agriculture data like land parcel information system or some another data were not included in INSPIRE. So not all was in INSPIRE, but generally, I think that INSPIRE directive came into the force in 2007, and I think that the metadata start to be built approximately 2009. I'm now not sure, but from this year, there were obligation for all European countries to have and share the government metadata, not only for the data which were accessible or open, but for any governmental data. There were obligation to have this metadata and share this metadata with European Commission, with European INSPIRE portal in GRC in ISPRA. Later came the discussion about another model than work only with ISO 19, and it was GeoDCAT AP, which brings this metadata more to could be open data community and other, because probably you know that there exists DCAT, which is now the base for European Open Data Portal, and GeoDCAT AP is in some way extension of this DCAT, and it included some another parameter which are not in the standard DCAT. So there you can see the latest information. This is discussed between more organization W3C, and there are define a namespace. Joint Research Center work a lot about this, and although there exists some mapping between ISO and DCAT. This was one from the big important things, and if you are using some of our system, which is now very often used as open source, for example, GeoNetwork, which is very often used, but our team is developing Mitska. All this system support in some way to be able to work with both with ISO and DCAT, and we contribute also to this inspired DCAT harmonization, because this also opens the possibility for opening this metadata not only through the GeoPortal, but also, for example, using OpenSearch and other things that making this metadata available also for Google and other technologies. This metadata now are validated by GRC if they are valid, but later we will go to some detail how or it will be changed in the future, or what are now the ideas about the future of the Inspire and these things. This is related with something what is now initiated in Europe, and it is the landscape of European data spaces. There is a number of these data spaces. For us, if we are discussing about Inspire, the most important is Green Deal data spaces, but there are mobility data spaces, smart cities, agriculture data spaces. And the data spaces are focused not only on the metadata, but they are also focused on data sharing or data exchange. If we are speaking about the data sharing, we need to stress that data sharing is different from open data. Open data are the data which are available for anybody, could be with some licensing restriction, but anybody can use. But data sharing is something that some data are shared between, could be two or more organizations, but they are not publicly available. And a lot of development and discussion is now in Europe done on this model, and they are discussed the symmetrical data exchange paradigm. So they are defined metadata, but also data connectors, which has to support exchange of data and metadata among these things. And now with this, till now, I think it is not fixed. It is under the discussion. There were comments from a number of the countries, but on the table is now Inspire revision, which is based on green data for all, and in some way the goal is to replace the current Inspire GeoPortal by European data portal. So it also leads to some simplification of metadata, which are more related to the DCAT than to the geospatial. But all this is now under the discussion. It is still now not discussed, although it is expected that there will be already not the validation of Inspire metadata as central, like was done till now by GRC, but there will be replaced by decentralized project level shackle tools, and also that all from Inspire will be moved to this data Europe. So the question is what it will do with the geospatial data, and I think that there could be some danger for metadata. I will explain later why I think this. If this will be too much simplified, then probably could lead to some losing of information. We are now this webinar is organized by OGC, and although OGC is dealing with this topic, it is again much broader, and I think that OGC Rainbow is focused really on the semantics of the information, the basic ontologies, and how the static standard could be transform into some machine readable URI, and how it could be used really better to machine communication. It is a lot of moving to from to the RDF and another format, exchange format like JSON LD, which is JSON link data. So it again shows that it is focused on using RDF schema. And this Rainbow, it is defined some building blocks and profiles, community specified constraints on building blocks, which will be registered with unique URI. So there is running some number of test beds, and I think that although these things will be really deeply discussed on the next meeting in Helsinki, which will be in 2 weeks, and I saw in the program that number of these topics is the part of the program, and one from the important things is how we can in some way harmonize these different standards, and how we can make these new things with more semantics available for different tools. Now, also another important topic in Europe is Destiny E, building digital twins, which started mainly about climatic data and also satellite data. And of course, these data are now generated in a huge form, because you know that every day satellites are connecting many things, but also climatic and meteorological measurement are very big data. And there exist now two things. One is this climatic things, which is mainly defined by MWSAT and CMF, and DENDL, which is more supported by ESA. And here is some standards for metadata in this area is STAC, and STAC is again based on the RDF, but a relatively more simple model than is used for ISO or GeoDCAT. But there is also discussion now, and under the OGC are some tests how to transform the stack and how to be able to combine the stack with ISO elements. Stack defines JSON or GeoJSON LD data model, and also support indexing geospatial assets, and also is working with time, yes, because this is very important for all this measurement, and this is in the name of the stack is that it is working with temporal data. So these are the important things to be able to describe this. And what is important for the future, and also for Destiny E and for another things, is to be able to combine stack and ISO elements, or stack and GeoDCAT elements. Other initiative in Europe, which is also important and which also in some way address partly also spatial data, not only spatial data, but also partly address spatial data, is European Open Science Cloud. The idea of Open Science Cloud is to make available and fair all research data. So if you are working in a research project, you have to publish with, for example, Zenodo, your papers, but also the idea is to have available all data and to have this accessible. But I think that what I see a little now as the problem that till now is not a clear link between this, what about I spoke before, and this standardization EOSC now. Some projects are solving, for example, Fair to Adapt is focusing, for example, how to make the climatic data available through EOSC. There are different technologies. One from the technology is Rocreate, which is which is working not only with the data but with research objects. So the goal is to describe not only how you can access some data and read some data, but to be able to link this with concrete application and directly to be able to reuse this data and to use this data in another research. So this is another topic, and I think that also for the future is a big issue to go more and more to link it all these things together. In Focal, Focal is a project which is focused on downscaling of climatic data and testing this downscaling on two use cases. One is the urban use case and second is forest use case. I'm more familiar about this forest use case, and there are basic data, basic catalog for climatic services is STAC, which is now run on CESNet and which is federating this different data. This is accessible through REST API, and the question is how to succeed with federation approach, not to have all in one place, but to be able to work with different places. What we are now trying in Focal is to be able to combine these different catalogs into one solution. And I mentioned that we are working a long time on the open source catalog Mitska. For the people, it is something similar like GeoNetwork. And what is the goal is to be able to combine this different catalogs into one, and to be able to make access to classical inspired protocols based on CSV principles, but more and more to use this DCAT AP and to make this accessible for open data. But of course, this is also important for our analysis and to connect this with another tool. So we are using hub for everybody as the tool for displaying of the data, and this is now connecting with number of analyses which are developed by different research people for downscaling the climatic data, and also make some models which will help to advise how to better mitigate climatic changes. So if as I mentioned, MITSCA is developed very long time. I think we start around 2002, 2003. Initially, it was starting on this 19150, 1939 inspired profiles. Later, we included GeoDCAT and RDF sterilization. It is possible to make bidirectional harvesting via CSV, atom, and REST. And there are API for XML, GeoDCAT, Turtle, and JSON, and with the semantic data. Here you can see the address, and this is now connecting also with Lyman. Lyman is publisher of OGC services, but also the data you are able from web application or desktop application. Directly put the desktop application we are using QGIS, directly publish the data and metadata to the system. So this is now solution which is used in the Focal. And now I will move more to large language models, which are bringing new view on the future, and also which are more and more influencing also geospatial world. I think that when it appeared, it is already more than 3 years, it was something where we start to thinking how it could be integrated into the. Now is such situation, okay, the development started in US at first. Probably all from you know this ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. Yes, so they are very strong tools, and they are models which are trained to solve anything and to be trained for anything. Yes, this is sometimes also leading to some hallucination and some problem. On other side, in China, they are trained to be more target and to support more implementation of LLMs for concrete domain, not to have something very generic, but okay, they are also developing generic model, but they are trying to solve the concrete models with some concrete task. And I think that this is also the future for the Europe. We never will be able to use such a huge infrastructure like exists in US. We never will be able to consume so big amount of energy like in the US. So we need to focus on small solution, and which will be target and which will target on concrete problems. And with this, it's also important to start thinking more about metadata, because if we would like to make target models solving some concrete problems, could be agriculture subsidies, mitigation of forestry on climatic changes, and other. We need not only to discover that there exists some data, but we need to understand much more about the semantic of the data, about the meaning of this data. And now it's very popular to use this term FAIR, but it is not enough, yes, because we need to have this data for the future semantically fair, to be able to understand the content of the data, what are meaning of every value, what is the structure, to be possible to use this and analyze this with different, not only NLM, but also with another generative AI tools. On other side, what is also important that with the help of AI, we can also improve the metadata. Yes, we can, for example, take some textual description, some scientific paper, and we can bring some additional information into the current metadata and to make some or semantic meaning of this data to be able to understand this. So I think on one side we need to make better and more semantically data. We need to support knowledge graph and other things, but on another side we need to we can use this language model to make this or enrich this data. And what is also important is to try to connect it, this different initiative under the Destiny EOSC and other to go in one way, because Europe, we can say, we are relatively small to lose effort and to do this in many directions, but we need to be able to use effectively our resources and to be able to generate this with to be able to generate this with language model. As probably some from you know, we are now working on the model for GeoLLM, which is called JackDaw, and the discussion about metadata is one from the most important discussion. It is important to consider that again we are returning not only to data, but we also need to be able to describe the tools, and we need in some way work with semantics in both to be able to combine these things and to have some answer. Now we are thinking about agent, yes. Many things is on the combination of different agents, so we need to find some workflow, but again we need to be able to describe this agent. There are MCP servers, but we need to be able to describe this NCP servers and to be able to combine this. All these big players now are moving more and more to this agentic things, and this is very, very important. But I think that with right agent and with right division of the complexity of the problem, we can be able to prepare such solution which will be able to work with less resources and to give us the result. And of course, in some way, we need to reuse what exists already, what we have, the tools, and to be able to use existing data and integrating this existing data into the decision-making processes. Other topic is that we are need to transform not only metadata, but we are also need to transform data. There are again the possibility on one side, for any tools of artificial intelligence is more nature to work with raster data, and we are able to work with with some possibility of different data cube. But on other side is the way to transfer both metadata and data into the GeoRack to be able use directly the tools of LLMs, which are able to read this in the form. But again, if you are familiar, the GeoRack need to have also some spatial some spatial components which are helping to providing spatial analysis, because we don't need to work only with attributes, but we need to be able also combine this with these spatial topics. And this project, now we are working this in focal, but polyrural plus bioclima and another, and we are discussing how to have LLM ready, metadata ready for this LLM, and how also data make ready for LLM. And this is something what require a lot of till now research, a lot of standardization. I hope that these things will be able to discuss again more direct in the Helsinki, because this integration of metadata and GeoRack into LLM is the key problem for the future effective work. Because if we are able to work with this, we don't need to train model with all data, but we are able to use this as external libraries. So the goal is to be able to bridging all this existing standard and combine with control vocabularies, and to develop some middleware which will be able to translate metadata standards into the form which will be available for AI agents. One thing is that we need to have persistent URI for a spatial data set, because this can help us to resolve harvesting duplication. It is one thing, and we need to define some profile which will be able to harmonize data and to transform the metadata, and to transform the metadata into the form which will be easy usable for these LLM models. We are now defining some 4-layer architecture, which is a data tools publication, which could be based on standard services which we are working, GDL, OGR, OGC services. Then is semantic discovery filtering. Here is something what we call now Raven, early we call this MacP, and we need now to enrich this by spatial temporal content. MCP workflow orchestration, this is the layer where we are selecting different agents, and these agents are helping us to analyze, and then we are generating this AI metadata and GeoRack. When we are making this analysis through the Raven, we are pre-filtering the description of the different MCP tools and also the data, and combining this data, and GeoRack is the way how we can, with directives LLM, query the spatial data, and we need to have spatial indexings and receiving some data directly from vector data. So this is what is now developed, and we are now working on this strategy. Yes, how coming from classical could be AI tools like Mitska and Hub for Everybody or Lyman to be able to enrich the data and to prepare this in the form which will be available for the language model. Of course, till now is a big issue to integrate it time series, and what is also important that this way is helping to do something what was never be able before with GIS tool, and this is combination with textual data. Yes, so this is something what is helping us to understand, but also integrate and improve the data and metadata that we are integrating the description. I think that now in a focal with OGC, what is testing is to take some part of the data which are in vector form and describe and prepare description of this data, integrating the textual description of this forestry typology, and to build a semantic system which is able to understand this data and give answer on this data. So I think that it is from my presentation, and I think that I am now ready for some discussion.
Hey, excellent. Thank you, Karel, for that. No, that's a really interesting presentation. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? If you do, just raise your hand, or yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, thanks for that great presentation. There's it's fairly dense. There's lots in there, so it's very comprehensive and impressive. A couple slides back, I really like that data harmonization slide earlier, which talked about some of the challenges for harmonizing between ISO, DCAT, and Inspire. In terms of UUID-based deduplication, at least from a spatial perspective, the one thing I didn't see you mention is discrete global grid systems. So DGGS is a way of, as you probably know, building indexes. So you have effectively a URI or an ID for every location, a unique ID for every location on the Earth's surface at particular scales using different schemes. So is that something that might be helpful to sort of geo-enable metadata integration?
Yeah, I think that it is the task for future. Of course, I know this work and I know this effort, and we have the idea to continue in this direction and tested this in some cases. Of course, is the good way for the indexing. What, for example, is some way to work directly with data as index tools. I see this as something what could be really very useful. Till now, we work mainly only on the level of Europe, so we didn't need to go to the global. For the global, probably is the best way to use, and we plan to make some activity near in the future in this direction.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, Dean. Eva?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Karel, for the presentation, and indeed it was really dense. You put in there a lot of information, and I know it's still this is work under progress, of course. For me, it would be really helpful if could you also put it a bit into context, like what would be a specific use case or application Also, where would you locate that within our focus system, and really pin down the benefit from a user's perspective within these workflows that we have, in order to have these kinds of interfaces available for the metadata.
We have now some issue and discussion with the colleague from OGC about this forest typology. I know that we had a discussion last week about this, and this forest typology data was in some way moved to rainbow structure. And there is the plan about this to discuss this in Helsinki, but the idea is to develop on the top of this application, which will be able to communicate with language interface with non-expert, and to, for example, make recommendation about potential reforestation, because this is not only a combination of this typology data, but we need to understand this typology data, yes, because if you will look on this data, it is some set of the codes, but we need to know that this concrete codes mean some could be average temperature something, and also the idea is to be able to combine this with downscaling climatic data. Till now we made the test with Cordex, and for example to prepare some recommendation for the future, how to change the rules for planting of the trees on the base of expected climatic changes. Yes, so but this means that we need to be able combine different data sources to be able to understand semantically these different data sources to be possible to do this, and then we will be able to integrate LLM as type of user interface which can help people without deep GIS knowledge or this problem to be able to help them and also explain them why they have to do this. Yes, not only telling please plant this tree, but to explain, okay, your area is in such your area is in such conditions. Now there are such conditions, and these conditions are currently good for example, this type of the trees. But if in 40 years, because forestry is planning is some long time planning, if in 40 years the climatic changes will be such and such, then probably for this region will be better to change the composition. And of course you need to start thinking with this, but it is necessary to explain this and also to make suggestions. Yes, because you know that these climatic scenarios, they are very relatively wide, and it's necessary to tell to the owner, okay, if they will be optimistic scenario, probably this is good. If pessimistic, this is good. And this need to be able really work with the semantic data and with a good description.
Could I just ask a quick question back? Because Karel, of course, I know these use cases, and we have also defined these kind of use cases for better support for the local decision makers based on the climatic and Earth system modeling data set combined with the geospatial data sets. And at the moment, we are looking in really complex data processing in order to achieve that and to be able to provide these more usable data sets to the end users. And so my question would be, what you've shown here, would that be the vision, that these complex data processing steps are not even necessary anymore because it will be done by AI on the metadata that you have? Or is it more a natural language user interface? And of course, you still need these more scientific processing steps behind that, and you adjust.
I think that it will be not replacing all this data integration and these things, yes. But if we would like to make this data integration easy in the future, yes, this is the way how we can combine, or how we can change this data for the future, and probably not everywhere, but in many cases will be easy to go with this. But in some way it's important to be able to analyze this data. Yes? And what I believe too much is a combination of this spatial data with the texture data, and to enrich this spatial data with this texture data. But till now, yes, we are discussing in the team what is better or more important, to make this enrichment directly on the level of metadata, or to make this enrichment directly on the level of the data. As you know, yes, in this our report, we suggest two things. Yes, one thing is to design and develop could be more classical solution, but on the other side to test parallelly with this could be LLM based solution, which is new, and which was in principle not known when we wrote the Focal project. Yes, so but we are trying to integrate this new way, because I think that we need a little go ahead with the project, not only stay on the initial plan, but to go a little ahead and to test it if we will be able to do this more effectively.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Chris?
Well, let me get my video on, right, so you can see me. First a comment, and then a question. The first comment is Rainbow is still a kind of a research project in OGC. There is every expectation that the Rainbow will turn into something operational, but it is still not so formally adopted as a production. So, yeah, use it with
I know
consideration.
We had about this discussion last week with the guys from OGC. Fine. And
that's fine. That's fine. You know that. Well, then the real question is, I'm a meteorologist and I just like to do things. So I'm going to ask everybody, well, because of this presentation, what are you going to do different next week, including you, Karel? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug away at making sure the control vocabularies that we have are accessible and controlled, not worrying too much about the large language models. That will just, or the machine learning, because that's what they need, and perhaps make them available to MCP. And making sure the metadata really is interoperable. Whether that needs semantic uplift or not is now that is one of the decisions to be made. But the real issue for us is make sure metadata is controlled and accessible, and there's a lot of it. So, what else is anybody else going to do?
I think that okay, about interoperability of metadata, mainly in geospatial, what was done a lot in the past, as I mentioned, and generally sharing of inspired metadata was something like common process. Of course, now we need to be more advanced, and probably there is necessary to start again deep discussion about this more semantic interoperability. Yes, this is something what could be. I am not so happy from this discussion now about reducing the Inspire on only on this data portal, but we will see what will bring. And I think that there is necessary to discuss a lot of things for the future to guarantee effective usage of the data, also for training and decision making.
Okay, thank you.
And
Anyone else could chip in?
Yeah, sorry, does anyone else want to, before we go to Dean, does anyone else want to comment on Chris's suggestion? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, well, this does kind of what I'm going to do tomorrow is related to the questions I'm asking here. Well, the general question I have is, what are some of the primary remaining challenges you have with Raven and JackDaw, with that integration strategy? Like, for example, how well does it support updates? Because I know with STAC, that's one of the big challenges. Often you just have to drop and rebuild. It's hard to update individual components within STAC. That's sort of more broadly speaking, what are your remaining challenges? More specifically, I think, and this kind of relates to what we're doing a lot of work on these days, is how best to support AI orchestration via tools like MCP or interfaces like MCP. So to Ava's point, the role for deterministic scientific modeling, well, one approach is to wrap that up in MCP so that those tools can inform the AI workflows.
Yeah.
But maybe I really liked your slide on Raven JackDaw MCP architecture, and I'm just wondering if you could describe a little bit more the importance of metadata to provide context to MCP, to maybe not just filter which MCP tools are used, but also prioritize and maybe support that more of an agentic architecture with MCP. So maybe if you can just talk a little bit more about the MCP integration and the role of metadata.
Generally, I have to say that till now we have in our team a hard discussion what has to be prioritized in the analysis, if the selection of the tools or if the selection of the data. Yes, because this is some key issue, and as you know, with LLM could work sometimes not deterministically, and if you will query the same question more times, you can receive different results. Yes, so this is the way. What I think is the way, yes, and we are thinking more and more about this. I will go later to the description of the data, is to make limited some user group oriented solution. Yes, because if you are extending the number of the tools, yes, and if you are extending the number of the data, you are also extending the probability of wrong question. So our idea is not to build something what will be able to help to the farmers with their solution, and on other side to the planners to their recommendation, but to build some user-oriented things where we in some way will have a reduced number of the tools and also of the data, because this can reduce the possibility of the hallucination. But what is important, for example, in the description of the data, real to describe the meaning of the data, yes, because for language model, you have there some value. It could mean temperature or something, but it could be also, if you will, for example, have some raster with land cover data, you will have some number which has some another meaning, as say that it is forest or something. And to be possible to understand this data for any AI tools, you need to tell what is the meaning of the different value, for example. Yes, or with this typology in the maps is some called, I don't know, 4B. Yes, and it's important that the tool will know that 4B means that there is approximately such moisture, such type of the soil, such type of the weather, and such altitude. Yes, so that in this and also there are now recommendations that it is, for example, the best area for spruce. Yes, so all this meaning need to be in some way or included in the data which you are putting to the GeoRack, or need to be put in some way into the metadata to be possible to provide it interpretation of this data.
If I can just quickly add, maybe one thing that you're implying here is that MCP on its own doesn't have a lot of metadata. There's not really a standard for that. So you really need to wrap up the MCP in context.
We are making the catalog of NCPs, yes, and we are describing this NCP, and also we are describing what is doing this MCP to be possible to select the right MCP for the orchestration. And of course, how good will be this description? It the better could be the selection of the tools,
and also the semantic information for the MCP, so that the AI orchestrating workflow understands the purpose of the MCP as well as the results.
Yeah,
and certainty. Okay, yeah, it's a big topic. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
hopefully
great. Thanks.
we can talk about it in Helsinki. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so thanks. Thanks everyone. So yeah, we're a little over time, so we'll close the session here. So yeah, I'd like to thank Karel for his great presentation. Thank you all for attending and for the good discussion we had today. Just for everyone's awareness, so the next two events that this domain working group has coming up, so there will be a session at the OGC Connect session that's happening in Helsinki, Finland in June. So that our session will be on June 3rd. And then there will also be another focal project webinar that's focusing on AI training. That will be on June 10th, I believe at the same time as this one was. Yeah, with that,
maybe if I can add something more on the end, if this work start in not in Focal, we bring to the Focal from the Polyrural Plus, and till now this project continue. And if anybody will be interesting to start to cooperate with us and to join us on from 16 to till 18 of June, we are organizing some code camp in Athens, which is open for not only for Polyrural but for any projects and any people who will be interested to cooperate with us on this concept.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Sounds like an interesting opportunity. Great. Well, with that, thanks to everyone, and we'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.